Hey everybody, this is the day to do Lab 11. I'm going to put up some notes just to kind of right up at the front of the video. Let you know what the plan for the day is. So the first thing we're going to do is work through Lab 11, which is due this week. And then the second thing is we're going to take another step with Project 3. So I'll give you just sort of the tiniest bit of hint on Tuesday about how to start Project 3. And now I'm going to give you another idea. If you are watching the videos, then hopefully this helps you with Project 3, which is not due for a few weeks yet, but the sooner you start working on it, the better, because it's the hardest one to date. As you might imagine, the projects get slightly more challenging each time because your skills get greater each time. Today is April 16th. Okay, so that's the plan. First is Lab 11. So I'm just going to go and do the problems, solve the problems as it's laid out for me in the lab itself. So the way the lab is set up, I just sort of created little functions inside of which I give you opportunities to practice with slices of different kinds of data. So an integer slice, a float slice, a string slice. And then the last one is slice expressions, which is a super cool thing about slices and takes a little bit of practice to get used to. That's I think the most challenging one. So I'll just start working. Pretty print just means when I have a chance to do some formatting of my output, I should practice that. Project 3, this one. I use the make function to create a slice of 0 integers named numbers. So use the make function for that. Call the thing numbers, make a slice of integer, and make it size 0. So this is kind of a slightly more awkward way to create an empty slice other than the var method, but it's a legitimate way to make a slice. So that's what it asked me to do, so that's what I did. Number 2 says use %v to print. So remember, %v is a clue that we're just doing a quick and dirty print to see what it looks like. So I will do that. I'll put a little label here so I know what I'm looking at. So I can't really pretty print with %v. But since the instruction tells me to do that, then I know that what the instruction really wants is for me to just look and see what does a 0 size slice look like, which it's going to look like an empty slice. Print the length of the slice. We know how to do that. Length of numbers. Lengths are integers, so that'd be %d, and then I use the len function on the slice I want to know the length of numbers. So all those are pretty straightforward. I'm going to just, to get you in the habit, I'm going to just stop and run it on occasion. So go run lab 11. So that's what I would expect. I made a 0 length, and the 0 length should look like there's nothing in it because there is nothing in it. Okay, so 4a and 4b, these numbers that have like a, b, and c on them, that means that they're all part of one sort of piece. So 4a and 4b are things that are happening literally just to do something a certain number of times, in this case 5. Prompt for and read in 5 values. So I'm going to need a value, which would be an integer, because I've got numbers, which is an integer slice. Prompt for, I'm reading in 1 at a time. The whole purpose of the loop is to repeat this, so enter 1, enter 1, enter 1, enter 1, until the 5 have been entered. So enter a number, and I'll scan for their input, and then I will use append. I'll scan in their input, there's my variable, and then I will use append to add that input to numbers and then overwrite numbers with the newly appended value on it. Okay, so %V, so that's nice. That means pretty printing has kind of been taken out of my hands. So I will format.printf numbers. I'm going to put a label here, so after inputs, dated numbers with all the new inputs appended to it. And then I will put the length of number. It counted up, it did something 5 times, it'll stop. There's my new numbers that I typed in, 10, 20, 30, and the length is 5 as expected. So that's a success on the integer slice. So that one wasn't too hard, I just did what I was told. The point is to sort of stop and ask yourself, why is it telling me to do that? Usually it's because I've written these labs to encourage you to learn how to do a technique like a loop, but then use output statements to see if your technique actually worked. Did my numbers go in the slice or not? Okay, so now float slice. There's a note about pretty printing, so when I have the opportunity, I will put in the effort to format. Okay, so number 1 says, use the make function to create a slice of 5 float 64 named temperatures. Okay, so temperatures, make slice of float 64 of length 5. So not length 0 this time. So now it has 5 things in it. Use %teachers at the position and overwrite that with their input, which means that I can still use that index to overwrite individual values in the slice. And I'm not appending here because it already had 5 elements in it. So the catch here is if I look at this range loop carefully, I will notice that inside of here I never actually use this temperature. And if you don't use one of these pieces, then you ignore it. So I'm actually ignoring the temperature that I pull from the slice, and I'm only interested in the index that it goes with because I want to overwrite that position with a new input. So the reason why I made us use what? Oh, I got an error. So if I don't need this second piece, I can literally just remove it. That's what my error is saying. So if I only need the index, just get rid of the second part. Hopefully that works. Feels a little funny. Let's see. We'll see what happens. So I didn't want that second piece, but when I saved that, the prior temperature. Okay, so there's that. I enter them. So this next one says use a range loop, how many temperatures I have, but I know now because we've done this 2 weeks in a row that that is an integer that won't work here, so I'm going to have to coerce it into being a float. I know. And then print it. 2 different loops, and then do a couple of different calculations as well. Let's see if it runs and see what it looks. Difference in an array and a slice is that arrays have a given, they have a fixed size that you put in the square bracket. So original greetings is an array of 3. That's how I know it's an array of a fixed size, because there's a number in there. And then I will put some strings in here, like howdy, hello, hi there. So it's making me use an array, and that's mostly because I wanted you to remember that arrays still exist. Slices are awesome, but you'll still see arrays from time to time. 3 strings, named original greetings, pre-populate it with greetings of my choice. So I stole the howdy, and then I said hello, and then a hi there. What a lot of people want to do here is type a 3, which technically is correct, because that would make this updated greetings to have the same number of strings as original greetings. But you should never type a hard number unless you have to. And there is another way to get the length of original greetings without typing a hard number, and that's to use the length function. So I'm going to use the length of the original greetings to make the slice. So now I have the original greetings, which is fixed size to 3, and I have updated greetings, which is a slice of that same length, which is 3. Greeting. So in other words, I'm going to take the howdy that has just the capital H, and I'm going to put in original greetings. In updated greetings, I want to get an index and a greeting. As I range over the original ones, and now since updated greetings is the same size, I can use this index. So for the greeting at position 0 in original greetings, I can use the same position in updated greetings. So if howdy is in position 0 in original greetings, all capital howdy will be in position 0 in updated greetings. And what I want to overwrite that with then is the all uppercase form of greeting, and that's where the hint comes in. So I can actually do strings dot to upper on that greeting. So I'm going to grab howdy, hello, and hi there in their original form as I range over the original greetings. I'm going to take each of those greetings, howdy, followed by hello, followed by hi there, and uppercase it. So all caps howdy, all caps hello, all caps hi there. And then I'm going to overwrite the updated greetings slice with those uppercase. So when I get howdy at position 0, I will have all caps howdy at position 0 and the updated one. Where I get hello from original at position 1, I will have all caps hello at position 1 and the updated, and so on. This one also, number 5, then lets me off the hook because it just says use print v or %v, so that's good. Dated greetings, uppercase, so just to tell myself this is when that had happened. In lowercase letters, the updated one has all uppercase, so we'll just show that real quick. I have to do some typing here. And then after I've run through the all uppercase process, there they all are in all uppercase letters, and they're in the same order. So howdy is at position 0, hello at position 1, and hi there at position 2. And that's because in the loop, I used the I from original greetings so that when I'm at position 0 in the original, I'm also at position 0 in the updated one. Okay, this last one is actually fairly short. It's just it's challenging because it has slice expressions, so this is a kind of different application of slices. But notice it's having me declare an array, so that might feel funny at first. So fixed size string array called products, and it has bread, milk, eggs, butter, sugar. Oh, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but we finally got some toilet paper. It felt like a miracle. Hopefully you guys are not struggling to get toilet paper, because then I'd feel bad. But we hadn't bought toilet paper since March 12th. Okay, so there's my array. Now this is funny because we're in a slice lab. Why am I putting these arrays in here? Well, it turns out that you can use slice expressions on slices or. Okay, so %v, which means I don't really have to do much pretty printing because %v, let's see, first 2. So I'm just going to label that so that I know. V, first 2 products. Okay, so a slice expression is a thing with a colon. Start at index 0. The second one is the index 1 past where you want to be. So if I want the first two strings, that's index 0 and index 1. So the second number is 2 because that's 1 past the 1 index that I want. You can also, by the way, if you're starting at the beginning, you can leave the 0 off and go, we'll just assume you mean start at the beginning. So this means start at the beginning, stop when you get to index 2, before you get to index 2. That's the first two. But let's look and see how it runs. So there's bread and milk. Those are in fact the first two, so I'm pleased with. You could say start at index 3 and go to the end, which would give you index 3 butter and index 4 sugar. Okay, so give me a sec. Let me get that stuff pasted into mine. This is okay, int float map. Okay. Yeah, that one's a challenging one. Okay, so give me a moment to put this back in order. Just because, you know, the copy and paste makes a bit of a mess of it. I can make that more. I can go more than that. Okay. Int bool, int float, map, use percent. Where'd that go? Oh, I see. Okay. There it goes. Gonna kind of scrub this one clean of some other junk for now. Float map. Let's get rid of all this stuff for now. Okay. Bool map. Okay. So one thing to note here, and this is sort of just, let me move these to below. Can you hear me? Yeah. One thing to look for when you're using arrays and slices is opportunities to not have to hard code a bunch of stuff. So if you notice here, these numbers start at 2000 and count up one at a time, all the way up to 2018, in a particular order. So I can actually I can cheat that by using a counting loop. So I'm just going to start with I less than something, I plus plus. So is there a way for me to use a counting loop to reduce the amount of work that we have to do here manually? generate these numbers for me. I think it's 19. Yeah, that's 19 in total. Where do I stop before I get to 2019? Because 2018 is the last one. So I can actually do this part, the consumer at I, with this loop. Um, Grabbing the CPI averages with the I is 0, I is 1. The trick is on the consumer side then, when the CPI average from 0, I need to go in position 2000, and CPI average at 1, I need to go at 2001. If I'm working from this side, then these are all 2000 more than the associated index and CPI averages. So that's a way to save a lot of that work. I happen to like I don't care. It's the same to me, either way. But anyway, look for opportunities to cheat, and it's not cheating. It's making loops do the work for you if you can. So that one was tricky. It's hard to see that, but I wanted. Although I prefer to use an I because that's what you'll see programmers do. So if you get your I trained for it, then you'll know what programmers are thinking. So I don't need that. That was actually number 2. Okay, so I'm getting values. These things I get at each position. I get a key, which is the year, and I get the CPI value for that year. I do that to append them to the year slice. Okay, so I just want the years part. So years equals append. Okay, so let's go look at that and see what that does. Let me turn on this browser again. .int. Well, I'm going to go to the one that's the Go programming language site. Although I have to be in order, sometimes they aren't necessarily in order, and if you need them. So the idea is that it's possible that the map will take my years 2000 through 2018 and jumble them all up. And that's a problem if I need to look at them in order. If the map jumbles them, I'll put them in an array just of the years, and once they're in an array, now I can sort them. So the map is still a jumbled mess, but the array has all the years in order, 2000 up to 2018. So you can kind of, if you can imagine, I have 2 lists of things. Actually, let me I'll turn on my camera and I'll draw you a picture real quick so you understand what is going on here. Hold on, let me get my camera up. So I'm going to add. Okay, so just for a second, and then I'll turn this off, but let me just show you what the plan is here. So I have consumer, this map, and the years are potentially all over the place because maps just work funny that way. So when I put things in a map, it's possible that it's got everything all jumbled up. But now what I've done separately is I've made years and I've sorted them so that they are in perfect order. So the years are in perfect order. The map is a mess. So that's where I'm at right now, is I have this consumer map where the years are possibly just all over the place. And I have my slice of years that I just sorted so that I know it's guaranteed that these are all in perfect order. Now where I got these years from was from consumer. So initially,
I'm going to cycle the years. And then since the years are in order, I can range over these and get them in perfect order. And then I can use that to go over here and get the consumer items in the proper order. So I got these all set up so I can use these sort of as an index or a reference that I can then go back into consumer and get the years in the order that I want them to be. Now that's a little bit confusing, but that's kind of the plan here. Okay, which brings us to number 7 probably, yeah. So 7. Use a range loop over the years. Okay, so how am I get order? And then what I want to know is in what year did the CPI decrease? And by the way, it's going to, okay, but that's just an accident that happened. This was sort of, I wrote this looking at data from the last recession in 2008. Okay, anyway, so what I'm looking for is I'm going to take each year and I'll go back over to the consumer map and I want to look for year over year when things decreased. So this kind of problem is challenging. It's a very common problem, but in programming, I need to keep track of last year's value so that I can compare that to this year's value. And the easiest way to do that is to just give myself a variable for it. These are floats. This will start at 0, and there is no CPI less than 0, so I can sort of take advantage of that fact. Okay, so I'm going to grab a year, and I'm going to take that year and go into the consumer map for that year. And I'm going to say if that CPI is less than last year's CPI, what am I supposed to do? Oh, the year's in the CPI? Okay, so the year and the CPI. So I don't know if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. This whole range loop just gives me the years in the proper order. 2000 followed by 2001 followed by 2002. That way I can say, hey, between 2003 and 2004 the CPI went down. So I take that year and I access the consumer map with it, which gives me a CPI for a particular year. And then I look to see if that is less than the prior year's CPI. If it is, then I'm going to print the year, which is an integer, and I'm going to use an arrow because I think that looks cute. And then the consumer price index. So I'll print the year, and I will print the CPI taken from the consumer map at that year. So that's the main part of the algorithm is this year's CPI less than last year's CPI? If it is, then I want to print this year's CPI. Now notice where I am. I'm outside. I'm still in the for loop, but I'm outside the if. Whether or not I print the CPI information, when I get to the end of this loop, I want to hold on to that year's CPI because when I come back around in the loop, now that will be last year's CPI. So this step means that, okay, the current year, that's now the prior year, so that when the loop repeats, now I can look back at last year's CPI constantly. So this should tell me the years where the CPI went down and what the CPI was in those years. So let's see what we get. Well, we get an error because I did not use the I. Okay, so I'll ignore that. Didn't use the I in this loop, this year loop. So there was 1 year in that whole series from 2008 to 2018 where the CPI went down, which was in 2009, which is just interesting to me because that was after the recession that started in 2008. So that is a challenging algorithm to solve. So it may take some puzzling over. Plus, you're going to see me solve this again. So probably when you see it again during the broadcast in a couple weeks, at that point it'll be old hat, and you'll think, "Oh yeah, I remember solving that problem." 43. Oh, yours might be a different 43 from mine. I scrubbed everything out. Um, I don't know, you may have to paste it in. But in this range loop up here for number 5, check out how I did it, which is I didn't need the CPI value up here. And you can't just ignore it, it turns out, and go. If you don't need the second part, you just take the second part off. I think that they should have made it so that you ignore it instead. That would feel more consistent to me. I don't know what that means. I think I have your same code up to, well, I did this part different. I did part 2 different. The way you did it is fine. I was just showing you there that you can do it with less coding effort. I don't know what that means. It doesn't do it to me, so something's wrong in your code somewhere. Interesting. I wonder what what baby doll Go, my Go version is 1.13.1. If you type Go space version, what do you get? I'm just curious. Because if you can write it like you're writing it, that is preferable. I much prefer that. Let me try it. Let me see what happens if I put that back. Let me see. If it runs, then I'll be happy. Oh yeah, it runs. Okay, so you can do it, just my Atom setup didn't like it. Oh, it's GoLint. It's an extra plugin that I installed. Oh, interesting. So it does work though. I just get this GoLint that I installed, this plugin I installed in Atom that gripes at me about that. So yeah, I did it and it worked. So you can do it, which is much my preference, to be honest. I like saying I'm ignoring one part or the other. GoLint thinks I should take it out, but I didn't have to. So that's good to know. Thanks for that, pointing that out. Baby doll, what if you take yours out? Does it work for you if you take that out? Or do you get an error at that point? I'm curious to know if 1.12 prefers the ignore style. That's a good question. So, um, no, there's no real advantage of a map over. Uh, but I'll give you a quick example why some people like maps better. So, the main difference is that if you have an array, um, so let's just say you have an array of numbers. Then the way you access the individual numbers is always with index values. Always with index values. Now, if you have a map, um, if you have a map, the advantages some people would argue about it is that instead of just being stuck with the same zero-based index as a slice, you can actually use words for your indexes instead. So I can say shopping list, um, apples equals 3. So I want to buy 3 apples. Now I could do here, so let's just say that I'm going to put apples as item 2 in my array. So hopefully you can sort of see the difference. Okay, so I get 1.12 and 1.13 are probably very subtly different. So, but I'm glad, Baby Doll, that you found that you could use that ignore style, because I happen to think that that consistency just makes it easier to understand. But it's good to know you can do both on your version too. So an array, I would have to remember that index 2 is where apples is. Whereas a map, I can just remember the word apples and get the information back out. That's the main difference. Maybe someone would argue with me somewhere out there about how there's some other difference that they see that they like. But to me, the main difference in a map is that instead of having the 0, 1, 2, 3 indexing, you can make the indexes be whatever you want. So you can say like, and then you could say, I'm just going to say birthday here. Then you could say, for example, birthday in 1997 was, I don't know what people would have, a cake. So if this makes sense, with a map, you can actually use the keys instead of just the 0, 1, 2, 3 kind of index. You can actually use the keys to help you remember where the data is. So now if I want to know what I got for my birthday in 1997, I can just use that key. So I can say, right, if I got something in 2003 for my birthday, and then I can say birthday 2003, and I don't have to remember which zero-based index I find that data at. It's the year that tells me where I get it, which some people would argue is a lot easier to remember. So that's the difference, really. They do seem more confusing to process until you get used to it, though. Yeah, that's pretty neat. So there are cases where you can, like I like to make games. In a game, I might say, player, items, gold. And then I use that as a way to remember where I'm storing the gold, and player items, health, that kind of thing. So that can be handy for that. I'm running long, so I'm not going to do the Project 3 stuff. I'll do that on Thursday. So just apologies to those of you who, unless you ask, but otherwise, I'll probably wait on the Project 3 stuff and I'll squeeze it in on Tuesday next week. So which is, I don't know what it is, 14th to 21st. So we'll do that next Tuesday instead. So that people can ask questions if they want. Lab 16. All right, let me open it up. Oops, wrong place. Open up lab 16. String. Okay. Let me push this to the side so I don't accidentally overwrite the original and ruin it. The name of the user that mentioned you previously. Okay, so that part. What do tweets have? So they have a text, they have an author, they have hashtags, and they have mentions. Last mentioned by Coder Plus. Okay, so the mentions part. Should I just do the whole function, or you just want to see that piece? Okay, let's do that then. So the way I would do it is I would make myself a var output string, and then eventually I'd return the output. Okay, in the meantime, so we need to get, okay, oh, it tells me. Okay, so the author's screen name. So output equals t dot tweets author's screen name. So I'm 2 steps away from that one. The author screen name. And a new line character. There's other ways to do this. In fact, I'm going to do it other ways. Let's do it other ways. I'm not happy with the way this is going so far. Am I? Yeah, let me show you a better trick for this. So I'm using sprintf, which what that does is instead of actually just printing f to the screen, it makes it into a string. That's string printf. So I can use the same setup as printf, but instead of going to the screen, it goes to a string, and then I can sort of hold on to it for a second. Okay, perfect. So then we'll just start adding pieces. So the text, so format.sprintf, which is their text. Oh, that's the tweet text, right? Okay, now the hashtags. Okay, so all of the hashtags? Yeah, all the hashtags with spaces in between them and @signs. I would bet that the @signs have to be added. So now comes the loop. So I will range over the hashtags from the tweet. And I will, ooh, this one's tricky. So I'll keep growing that with the, I don't remember how I did this, but hopefully this is not followed by a space. Okay, so if you see me doing some, okay, oh good, you can save me some time. I'm just gonna take yours and then we'll touch yours up, perfect. Oh, I'm gonna go back. Um, we'll compare notes in a second after I finish the thought. So anyway, I'm putting their name first on the output, and then I'm using plus equals so that I can make the output have more stuff on it. So then the text, then I'm going to have to loop the hashtags, which I think is what you did. Yeah, so you used a counting loop. I'm using a range loop, so same difference. Oh, that was a clever idea. Ooh, your idea is pretty cool. Okay, so name. Let's update and do it kind of like you did it, which is neat. Name equals text equals, and then hashtags. So now I built up the hashtags. By the way, you can like squeeze it all in right here if you want to, but I think probably no. I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna cut out the middleman. Let's see, %s followed by a new line, %s followed by a new line, %s followed by a new line. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Yeah. Followed by a new line, and then we will have the name and the text, and the hashtags and the mentions we will add. Nice idea. I stole that from you. Okay, so now we need the mentions. So we're going to need to know the number of mentions last mentioned by a name. I want to, let me put this on the next line down. I think it will. I need to take these new lines out. There's too many now. Take them out from up here. Okay, and this will be the length of T's mentions. I'm trying to figure out how to make this not a mess. I'm not happy with the mess that it is right now. Okay, it's going to fix it. That's the D part. And then the last one. So that's going to be T.mentions. And then I need to hit it at, which will give me the index of the last one in there. Now what if it's empty? Well, we won't worry about that. I bet it's not trying that out. I know. Mentions. Okay, so I don't know if that made sense. All I have to do is grab the last one, which is by indexing mentions at 1 less than the length of it. Now if it's empty, that would cause a problem, but I doubt that's being tested, so we'll worry about the last one appended to it. Should be the thing. And then thanks for that template idea. I don't know why I didn't do that, but that cleans that up so much. So that was such a good idea. And then I just took the new lines away from the other places that I did it. So anyway, thanks to your idea now, I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, I don't. Am I gonna? Oh, it's gonna gripe all over me. You're welcome. No problem. That was fun to do. And it was fun to use your idea, which I thought made it a lot more elegant. So that was cool. Oh, so the grader, if it's they're only grading, so if you have questions, just use the old JBoyd T at FubiT. If you need to ask me a question, send those to me. Um, if you're submitting assignments for grading, then send them to the grader, but send the questions part to me separately because they're probably not seeing and answering those questions. Okay, I'm gonna get off. So everybody have a good weekend. I will be back on Tuesday at 2 p.m. as always. You can email me in the meantime. So what I owe you on Tuesday is to get ourselves back to talking about Project 3 and moving that forward. Bye. Thanks.